What if I told you that right now, as you go about your day, entire cities are sleeping just beneath the surface of the earth, vast, silent, and almost completely forgotten? These are not natural caves or simple shelters, but intricate, multi-level worlds carved by human hands, designed to vanish from sight and memory. For centuries, they lay hidden, holding stories and secrets that rewrite what we thought we knew about ancient ingenuity, survival, and spirit. Today, we're going to descend into that darkness together, exploring the breathtaking subterranean cities that time almost erased, places no one was ever meant to find. Think about the world above ground, with all its noise and motion. Now imagine another reality existing quietly below, a realm of shadow and stone where communities once thrived in secret, protected from invaders, disasters, or the passage of eras. These underground marvels are more than archaeological curiosities. They are monuments to human resilience. They challenge us to reconsider history not as something distant and settled, but as a living, layered mystery still unfolding beneath our feet. From the rolling stone doors of ancient Turkey to the sacred chambers carved beneath the hills of Italy, these places speak to a universal drive to persevere, to hide, to hope, and to create something lasting, even when the world above feels uncertain. So I invite you to lean in and open your imagination. Over the course of this video, we'll uncover how these cities were built against impossible odds, how daily life unfolded in the dim flicker of oil lamps, and why they were eventually abandoned to silence and dust. We'll meet the people who called these places home and the modern explorers who brought their stories back into the light. This is a journey into the heart of human adaptability, and by the end, you may never look at the ground beneath you in quite the same way. The past is waiting just below the surface. Let's discover it together. There is a primal pull to the idea of descending into the earth, a feeling that has captivated humans since the very beginning. It is more than just curiosity. It is a deep-seated fascination with the unknown that lies right below our feet. We build our lives on the surface, in the light, yet we have always been drawn to the mystery of the darkness beneath. This allure is at the very heart of why subterranean cities hold such a powerful grip on our imagination. They represent the ultimate secret, a world intentionally hidden from view, and that secrecy is incredibly compelling. Think about the stories and myths that have been passed down through generations, tales of hidden treasures, mythical creatures, and entire kingdoms existing in vast underground realms. These aren't just fantasies, they are echoes of a very real human experience, a recognition that the earth itself can be a sanctuary. This fascination is also deeply tied to the thrill of discovery. There is a reason why finding a hidden door or a secret passageway in an old building feels so magical. It is the promise of uncovering something forgotten, something that wasn't meant to be found. When a modern-day homeowner in Turkey knocks down a wall and accidentally discovers the entrance to an entire city, it feels like something out of a storybook. It is that moment of connection across centuries, a sudden and tangible link to the lives of people who went to extraordinary lengths to conceal their existence. We are not just looking at ruins, we are stepping into a space that was designed to be invisible, and that makes the experience intensely personal and exciting. Experts like historian Dr. Elena Vance point out that these underground marvels speak to fundamental aspects of the human condition. They are monuments to our desire for protection, our quest for spiritual meaning, and our incredible capacity for innovation in the face of adversity. A subterranean city is not merely a hole in the ground. It is a deliberate, complex solution to a dire problem. Whether it was a community seeking refuge from an invading army, a religious group looking for a secluded place to practice their faith away from persecution, or an entire population escaping harsh environmental conditions, these structures represent resilience. They make us wonder about the people who built them. What were they so afraid of? What were they hoping to preserve? Their very existence challenges our often comfortable view of history, reminding us that for many, survival required extraordinary measures and unimaginable hardship. Ultimately, this allure sets the stage for everything we are about to explore. It is the emotional and psychological foundation that makes the specific stories of Derinkuyu, Kaymaklı, and other hidden cities so profoundly engaging. We are not just studying architecture, we are connecting with the universal human themes of fear, hope, community, and the enduring will to live. These buried cities remind us that history is not a simple narrative written in books. It is a layered, complex, and often hidden story, literally waiting in the dark just beneath the dust of time for someone to finally listen. So what exactly sets a true subterranean city apart from a simple cave or a network of tunnels? It is the unmistakable mark of human intention. These are not random hollows in the earth. They are meticulously planned, engineered environments designed for sustained life. Imagine a space that functions not just as a hiding place, but as a complete community with all the complexities that come with it. We are talking about multi-level structures that descend deep into the ground, featuring dedicated areas for specific purposes. This is where you find carefully carved living quarters, communal kitchens with evidence of ancient hearths, stables for livestock, storerooms for grains and wine, and even beautifully decorated chapels for worship. They were equipped with sophisticated infrastructure that rivals modern ingenuity, including ventilation shafts that provided a constant flow of fresh air to the deepest levels and intricate water wells that tapped into underground aquifers to sustain thousands of people for months on end. The defining characteristic, the element that truly separates these places from any other ancient structure, is their intentional concealment. These cities were built to be forgotten, to be invisible to the outside world. Their entrances were masterfully disguised, often hidden behind what looked like solid rock faces or concealed within the basements of ordinary-looking surface dwellings. Massive wheel-shaped stone doors weighing hundreds of kilograms could be rolled across critical passageways to seal inhabitants in and any potential threats out. This wasn't just about defense. For some cultures, this seclusion was spiritual. The act of descending underground was a passage into a sacred realm, a place set apart for rituals and connection with the divine, far from the distractions and profane world above. Archaeologists point out that the construction itself reveals a profound understanding of the local environment. Builders didn't fight the geology, they worked with it. They sought out soft, malleable volcanic rock like tuff or limestone, which was relatively easy to carve with simple tools yet structurally sound enough to support the immense weight of the earth above. The layouts were logical and efficient, with narrow, easily defensible corridors that would funnel invaders into choke points, while wider open spaces served as communal plazas for social gathering. This combination of practical necessity and deliberate secrecy creates a powerful duality. These cities are at once intensely functional, solving the immediate problems of shelter, water, and air, and deeply enigmatic, shrouded in the mystery of their hidden purpose. They stand as a testament to a unique form of genius, one that understood how to create a world beneath the world, a secret second reality carved directly into the bones of the earth. Now let's turn our attention to the place that truly defines this phenomenon, a city that pushes the very concept of underground living to its absolute limit. Nestled in the heart of Cappadocia, Derinkuyu isn't just a historical site. It is an architectural symphony carved from the earth itself, a multi-level marvel that plunges over 280 feet into the volcanic rock. To put that staggering depth into perspective, imagine stacking two modern statutory skyscrapers underground, one on top of the other. This wasn't just a simple shelter. It was a self-contained world capable of sustaining an entire population of up to 20,000 people for extended periods, a number that rivals many small towns of the era. The scale is almost incomprehensible, a testament to a society that planned not just for the immediate crisis, but for generations of security. The story of its modern rediscovery feels like a moment of pure fate. In 1963, a local resident in the town of Derinkuyu was renovating his humble home when he decided to knock down a wall. Behind it, he didn't find more stone or earth, but a dark, mysterious passageway that led to a hidden room. His curiosity led him further, and that single act of exploration unveiled a labyrinth that had been sealed and forgotten for centuries. What he had stumbled upon was the main entrance to an 18-level subterranean metropolis. Each level served a distinct and vital purpose, connected by a dizzying network of narrow, sloping passages and steep staircases. There were living quarters carved with niches for oil lamps, spacious communal kitchens, stables for livestock, churches with crosses carefully etched into the walls, and even dedicated winemaking facilities with deep pits for fermenting grapes. This wasn't merely a fortress, it was a fully functioning city in every sense of the word, complete with its own economy, social structure, and spiritual life. The sophistication of its engineering is what truly separates Derinkuyu from any other ancient structure. Archaeologists who have studied the site are in awe of the foresight displayed by its builders. The most iconic features are the massive, circular rolling stone doors. These were immense discs of solid rock, often weighing over 1,000 pounds, that could be rolled across key corridors to seal them from the inside. They were designed with a small, peephole-like opening in the center, allowing defenders to see and perhaps even attack anyone trying to break in without exposing themselves. Just as critical were the 52 ventilation shafts, some stretching all the way to the surface, which provided a constant, life-giving flow of fresh air to even the deepest chambers. And then there were the wells. The builders expertly tapped into an underground aquifer, creating a secure water source that was protected from being poisoned or cut off by any besieging army on the surface. This trifecta of security, air, and water made the city virtually impregnable and self-sufficient. Attributing its construction is a complex puzzle, as the city bears the marks of multiple civilizations layering their work over time. Evidence suggests the earliest excavations may have been started by the Phrygians around the 7th or 8th century before the Common Era. However, its most famous inhabitants were undoubtedly the early Byzantine Christians, who expanded it dramatically between the 6th and 10th centuries as a refuge from relentless Arab invasions and religious persecution. They found in these hidden depths the perfect sanctuary to practice their faith in peace, carving their churches and symbols directly into the stone. The city's very existence forces us to ask profound questions about the people who called it home. What was the social contract that allowed 20,000 souls to coexist in such intense confinement? How did they maintain morale and prevent despair during months or even years cut off from the sun and the world above? The sheer logistical feat of distributing food, managing waste, and maintaining order speaks to a level of social organization and communal trust that is simply staggering. Derinkuyu is more than a relic. It is a permanent monument to human resilience, a breathtaking example of our species' ability to adapt, innovate, and endure against unimaginable odds, all hidden away in the silent stone heart of Cappadocia. Just a short distance from the overwhelming vertical scale of Derinkuyu rests its fascinating counterpart, the city of Kaymaklı. If Derinkuyu is defined by its breathtaking depth, Kaymaklı is characterized by its remarkable breadth. This is a city that sprawls outward rather than plunging downward, with 8 explored levels arranged in a more horizontal, expansive layout. The experience of exploring Kaymaklı is profoundly different. Instead of descending a deep central shaft, you navigate wide, gently sloping tunnels that open up into surprisingly large communal spaces. These broad passageways and open areas suggest a different primary function. While Derinkuyu feels like a long-term, heavily fortified stronghold, Kaymaklı gives the impression of a place designed to accommodate a large influx of people quickly, perhaps as a temporary refuge for the surrounding surface communities during sudden raids or emergencies. It was a place of rapid gathering, not necessarily of prolonged habitation. Dating back to the same tumultuous eras as its famous neighbor, Kaymaklı shares many of the same essential features, yet arranges them in a way that feels more open and accessible. You still find all the components of a self-sufficient community: stables with tethering holes carved directly into the stone for animals, intricate living quarters with sleeping platforms, storerooms with large earthenware jars called pithoi sunk into the floors to hold oil, wine, and water, and of course, churches marked with simple but powerful crosses etched into the walls. The ventilation systems here are no less impressive, with shafts that still channel fresh air through the chambers today, a testament to the enduring quality of the engineering. Walking through these spaces, you get a clearer sense of daily movement and communal life. The wider corridors hint at the flow of people and livestock, and the larger open areas suggest places where groups might have congregated for safety, news, or mutual support during a crisis. One of the most captivating mysteries surrounding Kaymaklı is its potential connection to Derinkuyu. Local legends and some historians have long suggested that a tunnel, approximately 5 miles long, once linked these two underground metropolises. The idea is staggering: a secret, subterranean highway allowing movement and perhaps even the transfer of resources or people between two massive cities, all completely hidden from the world above. While this specific connection has not been conclusively verified by archaeologists, the very fact that it is plausible speaks volumes about the scale of ambition these ancient builders possessed. Even without a physical tunnel, the proximity of the two cities implies a strategic network. Why build two such monumental structures so close together? The answer likely lies in specialized function and distributed security. Perhaps Derinkuyu, with its immense depth and sophisticated defenses, was the designated long-term citadel, while Kaymaklı, with its ease of access and spacious layout, acted as a first-stop shelter or a processing point for refugees before a more permanent move deeper underground. This concept of a coordinated defense system transforms our understanding from seeing isolated wonders to recognizing a calculated, regional strategy for survival. Ongoing excavations at Kaymaklı continue to peel back layers of history, offering intimate glimpses into the lives of those who sought refuge within its walls. Archaeologists sifting through the compacted earth have uncovered clues about diet from animal bones and seeds, hints of industry from loom weights and tools, and fragments of pottery that speak to both daily use and trade. Each artifact adds a brushstroke to the picture of a highly organized society that could flip a switch, moving from a peaceful surface existence to a secure underground routine at a moment's notice. Kaymaklı may not hold the record for depth, but it provides an arguably richer understanding of the social and logistical dynamics of these subterranean societies. It stands as a powerful reminder that these hidden worlds were not desperate, last-ditch bolt holes, but rather pre-planned, integral parts of a community's identity, representing a profound and enduring will to preserve a way of life against any threat. While the rock-hewn wonders of Cappadocia rightfully capture our imagination, the story of humanity's drive to build underground is a truly global phenomenon, with each culture imprinting its unique signature on the Earth. This universal impulse reveals itself in breathtakingly diverse ways across continents and eras. Consider the ancient Etruscan city of Orvieto in Italy, perched high on a volcanic plateau. Beneath its charming medieval streets lies an entirely different world, a sprawling, multi-level labyrinth of tunnels, staircases, and chambers, meticulously carved into the soft, tough rock over 2,500 years ago. The Etruscans, a sophisticated civilization predating the Romans, engineered this hidden network not as a single city, but as a complex underground extension of their world above. They created vast, circular pits for pressing olive oil and storing grain, their stable temperatures perfect for preservation. They carved dovecotes to house pigeons for food and fertilizer, and they fashioned intricate wells and water systems that tapped deep into the aquifer. But perhaps most intriguing are the clues suggesting these spaces also served sacred, ritualistic purposes, serving as silent witnesses to ceremonies lost to time. Orvieto's underground is a testament to a society that fully integrated the subterranean realm into its daily economic and spiritual life. On the other side of the world, in China's Yanqing district near Beijing, a different kind of underground ingenuity emerged centuries later, born from a constant state of military threat. During the Ming Dynasty, as Mongol incursions along the northern borders remained a persistent danger, local communities devised an ingenious solution: entire underground villages known as Dixia Kanzhuang. These were not simply tunnels, they were sophisticated, multi-room subterranean courtyards dug deep into the hard-packed earth. From the surface, these settlements were virtually invisible, often concealed by crops or simple structures. Families would descend into a central sunken courtyard, which acted as a communal light well and gathering space, with individual rooms, kitchens, sleeping quarters, and storage areas carved into the four surrounding walls. These hidden compounds, some large enough to house hundreds of people, were complete with their own wells and ventilation systems. They functioned as self-contained fortresses, allowing villagers to vanish from sight at the first sign of raiders, emerging only when the danger had passed. This was defense through disappearance, a communal strategy for survival that transformed the very ground beneath their feet into a shield. Even in places where full-scale habitation wasn't the goal, the pull of the underground for spiritual and ceremonial purposes is powerfully evident. Take the Cochno Stone in Scotland, for example. While not a city, this site features a vast 5,000-year-old stone slab covered in intricate, mysterious cup and ring markings, and it is associated with a network of man-made underground chambers and tunnels in the area. These subterranean spaces, often dug into hillsides, are believed to have served ritual functions for Neolithic and Bronze Age peoples. The act of descending into the earth was likely deeply symbolic, perhaps representing a journey into the underworld or a connection to ancestral spirits. The darkness, silence, and separation from the everyday world above would have made these chambers potent places for ceremonies, initiations, or communication with the divine. This demonstrates that the human drive to go underground wasn't always born from pure survivalism. It could also be fueled by a profound spiritual yearning, a desire to access the power and mystery believed to reside within the earth itself. Anthropologists like Dr. Liam Chen point out that this global tapestry of underground structures, from the functional to the sacred, points to a fundamental thread in the human story. Whether driven by the sharp edge of a sword, the harsh reality of a drought, or the deep call of faith, cultures across time and space have independently arrived at the same ingenious solution: to use the earth itself for protection, preservation, and transcendence. The specific designs vary wildly, from the vertical cities of Turkey to the horizontal courtyards of China and the ritual chambers of Scotland, yet they all speak to a universal capacity for innovation in the face of pressure. They challenge our modern, surface-centric view of history and force us to recognize that a significant part of the human experience was deliberately designed to be hidden from view, waiting for us to have the curiosity to look down and discover the profound resilience buried just beneath our feet. When we marvel at these vast underground complexes, a fundamental question naturally arises: what powerful motivations could drive an entire community to turn away from the sun and sky, choosing instead to carve a life from the dark, silent earth? The answer is as complex and layered as the cities themselves, rooted in a combination of urgent necessity, profound spirituality, and brilliant practicality. Foremost among these reasons was the stark, undeniable need for survival in the face of overwhelming threat. Throughout history, the surface world has often been a dangerous and unpredictable place. For the early Christians in Cappadocia, that threat came in the form of relentless Roman legions and later Arab raiders, hunting them for their beliefs. The only way to preserve their community, their faith, and their very lives was to literally vanish. An underground city provided the ultimate refuge, a hidden fortress that could not be easily spotted, besieged, or burned. An invading army could sweep across the landscape, see nothing but empty hills and fields, and move on, completely unaware that thousands of people were living, praying, and waiting just meters beneath their horses' hooves. This strategic advantage of total concealment was something no walled city or mountain castle could ever guarantee, but the purpose of these spaces extended far beyond mere hiding. The earth itself became a sophisticated tool for preservation. Anyone who has ever stepped into a root cellar or a wine cave understands the principle. Underground, the temperature remains remarkably stable and cool, protected from the scorching heat of summer and the freezing cold of winter. Ancient cultures harnessed this natural refrigeration on a massive scale. The vast storage chambers found in places like Derinkuyu and Kaymaklı, with their rows of enormous ceramic jars sunk into the floor, were essential for storing grain, olive oil, wine, and dried meat. This allowed a community to build up a secure surplus, insulating them not just from human enemies, but from the famines and harsh seasons that could be just as deadly. In this way, a subterranean city functioned as a giant pantry and a bank vault, safeguarding the most precious resources needed to weather any crisis, whether it lasted for weeks or for years. For many cultures, the decision to build underground was also a deeply spiritual one, connected to ancient beliefs about the sacred nature of the earth. Descending below the surface was seen as a symbolic journey into a womb-like realm of creation, ancestors, and divine power. In Malta, the incredible Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, a labyrinthine underground complex carved over 3 levels, was used for over 1,000 years as a burial site and a temple. The acoustics in its oracle room are so uniquely powerful that a single spoken word can resonate throughout the entire chamber, suggesting it was used for rituals and chanting that connected the living with the spirit world. Similarly, in places like the underground churches of Cappadocia, the very act of worship was enhanced by the seclusion and darkness, creating an intense, intimate atmosphere for prayer and reflection far from the distractions of the outside world. The underground provided a perfect sanctuary for the soul. We must also consider the simple yet powerful force of environmental adaptation. In regions with extreme climates, going underground was the most effective form of climate control available. In the deserts of Tunisia, the remarkable underground homes of Matmata provided cool respite from the blistering heat. In the frigid plains of China, the subterranean Yedong dwellings offered warmth and insulation against bitter winters. This wasn't about hiding from people, it was about finding comfort and sustainability in a challenging landscape. What is truly fascinating is how these functions were rarely exclusive. A single underground city was a masterpiece of multifunctionality. It could be a fortress during a raid, a sacred temple on a holy day, a bustling storage facility during harvest, and a comfortable home during a heat wave, all within the same network of tunnels and chambers. This versatility reveals the incredible foresight of its builders. They weren't just solving one problem, they were creating a multi-generational insurance policy against a wide array of threats, both human and environmental. Their choice to build down rather than up was a deliberate and brilliant strategy, leveraging the one thing their enemies and the elements could not easily penetrate: the silent, solid, protective embrace of the earth itself. The sheer ambition of these projects is almost beyond belief when you consider the tools they had to work with. We are not talking about advanced machinery or powered equipment. The entire construction of a city like Derinkuyu or Kaymaklı was accomplished with the most basic of hand tools: iron chisels, wooden mallets, stone hammers, and picks. Their raw material was the earth itself, specifically a type of soft volcanic rock called tuff, which is prevalent in regions like Cappadocia. This rock formation was the perfect medium. It was soft enough to be carved with relative ease when first exposed to air, yet it hardened over time, becoming a durable and stable building material. This was a form of subtractive architecture on a colossal scale. Instead of stacking stones to build upward, these ancient engineers were carving away everything that wasn't a room, a staircase, or a hallway. A process that required an incredible vision to execute without modern blueprints or measuring devices. The most critical systems that allowed these cities to function as long-term habitats were feats of genius-level foresight. First and foremost was the challenge of air. Thousands of people and animals living deep underground would consume oxygen rapidly and fill the space with smoke from cooking fires and oil lamps. The solution was a network of ventilation shafts, sometimes numbering in the dozens. These were narrow chimneys, meticulously carved to connect the deepest chambers all the way to the surface, often disguised amidst the natural rock formations above ground. They functioned like a natural circulatory system, creating a constant convection current that drew stale air out and pulled fresh, clean air in. Then there was the matter of water. A besieged city is a defeated city if its water supply is cut off. The builders expertly located and tapped into underground aquifers, carving deep, protected wells that provided a constant and secure water source, safe from enemy contamination and independent of surface rain or rivers. Security was engineered into the very fabric of the layout. The entranceways were the most vulnerable points, and they were masterfully concealed, often accessed through what looked like a simple well shaft or hidden behind a large boulder in a private home's cellar. Once inside, the design was a defender's dream and an invader's nightmare. The passages were intentionally narrow and low, forcing any intruder to enter single file, bent over, making them extremely vulnerable to defenders. These corridors would often twist and turn unexpectedly, creating deadly choke points. The most iconic security feature, however, was the massive rolling stone doors. These were giant, millstone-like discs of solid rock, often over a meter in diameter and weighing hundreds of kilograms. They were precision-carved to fit into slots in the corridor walls and could be rolled into place from the inside with a lever mechanism, effectively sealing a passageway completely. A small hole in the center allowed defenders to see, speak to, or even attack anyone on the other side without compromising the barrier. The planning and structural integrity of these complexes reveal a profound understanding of physics and geology. The builders knew to leave massive pillars of untouched rock at regular intervals to act as natural supports for the ceiling, preventing collapses across wide chambers. The multi-level design distributed weight efficiently, and they carefully avoided undermining critical areas. This is why these cities have remained structurally sound for centuries, even millennia, while modern tunnels sometimes require constant reinforcement. How was this knowledge acquired and applied with such precision? It was almost certainly not the work of a single generation. This was a cumulative science, a body of knowledge painstakingly developed and passed down through families of master builders. It was a process of trial and error, of observing rock strata and learning from both successes and tragic failures, a legacy of practical engineering carved in stone that stands as a permanent monument to human intellect and determination. Imagine the rhythm of life in a place where the sun never rises, where the only light comes from the flickering flame of an oil lamp, and the air carries a constant, cool dampness. This was the daily reality for the inhabitants of these subterranean cities, a world of perpetual twilight where every aspect of existence had to be reimagined. Theirs was not a life of mere survival, but one of carefully orchestrated adaptation, a testament to the human spirit's ability to create normalcy in the most extraordinary circumstances. The day would have begun not with a rooster's crow, but with the communal sounds of a society stirring in the dark, the soft murmur of voices, the clatter of a pottery bowl, the scent of a cooking fire carefully channeled through a ventilation shaft. The organization of space was a masterclass in communal living under extreme constraints. Wide, open chambers served as the central hubs of daily life. Here, in designated kitchen areas, women would grind grain on stone querns, the rhythmic sound of familiar comfort, while large communal ovens baked bread to be shared among families. In other chambers, the constant click-clack of looms would signal the vital work of weaving, transforming wool from the sheltered livestock into clothing and blankets to combat the pervasive chill. Education was not abandoned. Children would be taught their letters and stories by lamplight in smaller, quieter alcoves, their lessons echoing the traditions of their people, ensuring their culture would not be extinguished even in the depths of the earth. Every task, from cooking to crafting, was done with a conscious effort towards silence. Loud noises or raised voices could mean betrayal, so a culture of quiet cooperation was essential for their collective safety. Yet, for all their ingenuity, the psychological weight of this existence must have been immense. Confined for months on end, with limited social interaction beyond their immediate group and the ever-present anxiety of discovery, the mental and emotional strain is almost unimaginable to our modern minds. How did they stave off despair or claustrophobia? The answer likely lies in the very structures they built. The presence of beautifully carved churches and chapels, their walls adorned with crosses and frescoes, points to faith as a critical anchor. Religious rituals would have provided immense comfort, a way to seek divine protection and maintain hope. Community gatherings for shared meals or storytelling would have reinforced social bonds and provided a crucial emotional release. These were not just practical shelters. They were spiritual sanctuaries where the community could collectively nurture its resilience. The strength required to wake up each day in the silent, stone darkness and continue the work of living, of preserving a way of life, is perhaps the most profound engineering marvel of all, carved not into rock but into the human heart. Even with all the incredible discoveries we've made, these underground cities guard their deepest secrets with a stubborn silence, leaving archaeologists and historians with a puzzle that is far from complete. One of the most perplexing questions is one of basic logistics. How did they manage it? How do you coordinate the excavation of an 18-level city, the carving of miles of tunnels, and the installation of complex ventilation and water systems without any of the written plans, architectural blueprints, or administrative records we would consider essential today? The scale suggests a highly organized society with centralized leadership, yet we have no clear evidence of who that leader was or how the labor was structured. Was it a communal effort with every family contributing a certain number of work hours? Was it the decree of a powerful king or religious figure, or was it a project that unfolded so gradually over centuries that no single generation ever saw the full scope of what they were a part of? The absence of written records from the builders themselves means we are left reading the story from the walls alone, and some of the chapters are frustratingly vague. This leads directly to another great enigma, the timeline. When you walk through a city like Derinkuyu, you are not walking through a structure built in a single era. The walls tell a story of constant expansion and adaptation. You can see the tool marks change, the style of arches evolves, and new passages are carved that connect to older, more crude chambers. It's clear that the Phrygians, the Persians, the early Christians, and later groups all left their mark, each modifying the city for their own needs. But untangling that timeline, figuring out exactly who built what and when, is a monumental task. It's like trying to reassemble a complex novel from scattered paragraphs that were written by different authors in different languages across a 1,000-year span. Carbon dating of organic materials like charcoal from ancient lamps or bones can provide some anchors, but much of the rock itself cannot be dated, leaving vast stretches of history open to interpretation and debate. Then there are the rooms that defy explanation. While we can easily identify churches, stables, and kitchens, other chambers leave experts scratching their heads. Some are perfectly circular, deep pits with no obvious purpose. Others are small, isolated rooms with a single, oddly shaped niche or a peculiar acoustic property. And what of the symbols, scratched into the walls alongside common Christian crosses, are geometric patterns, spirals, and shapes that don't correspond to any known alphabet or religious iconography from the period? Are these maps indicating secret routes or water sources? Are they ritual symbols meant to ward off evil spirits or bless a household? Or are they simply the ancient equivalent of doodles, the idle scratches of a bored shepherd seeking shelter? Without a cultural Rosetta Stone to translate them, these markings remain a silent language, their messages forever lost to us. Perhaps the most thrilling mystery is the simple question of what else is down there. Our exploration of these cities is far from over. In fact, ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive technologies have recently revealed something astonishing. We've only seen a fraction of what exists. Scans around known sites in Cappadocia show massive, unexplored voids extending far beyond the mapped areas. There are strong indications of entirely separate networks, perhaps even larger cities, still completely buried and untouched for millennia. The potential for discovery is staggering. What if one of these sealed chambers holds a cache of artifacts that finally explains who the builders were? What if a new tunnel leads to a room covered in paintings or writings that tell the city's entire story? The earth beneath Turkey, Italy, and other regions is quite literally honeycombed with secrets, and each new technological advance brings us closer to finding the next great doorway into the past. This abundance of mystery naturally tempts us to fill in the blanks with speculation, a tendency that scholars like Dr. Maria Rossi carefully warn against. It's easy to romanticize these places, to imagine fantastical explanations involving lost advanced civilizations or extraterrestrial influence. The truth, however, is often more nuanced and, in its own way, even more fascinating. The reasons for abandonment, for instance, were likely as practical as the reasons for construction. A shift in trade routes might have made the region less of a target, reducing the need for such extreme defense. A lasting period of peace could have simply made the uncomfortable underground life less appealing than rebuilding on the surface. Changes in climate, like a long-term drought, might have depleted the very aquifers that made the cities viable, forcing a migration. Or perhaps it was something as simple and slow as the passage of time. A generation was born that had never known invasion, and the knowledge of how to maintain the stone doors and ventilation shafts was gradually forgotten, until one day, the last entrance was sealed and covered by dust, leaving the cities to sleep until a curious homeowner millennia later decided to knock down a wall. These unanswered questions are not a failure of archaeology, they are its very heart. They remind us that the past is not a tidy exhibit in a museum but a living, breathing narrative with missing pages, inviting us to keep looking, keep questioning, and keep wondering what stories the next shovel of dirt might reveal. Long after the last inhabitants had sealed the doors and climbed back into the sunlight, the stories began to grow. These subterranean cities, abandoned to silence and shadow, did not simply vanish from memory, they were transformed. In the absence of fact, imagination rushed in to fill the void, weaving a rich tapestry of legend and folklore that draped these hidden worlds in a new kind of mystery. The very act of concealment, so vital to their original purpose, became the very thing that made them magnets for myth. People would stumble upon a strange, dark opening in the rock or hear an odd echo from beneath their feet, and with no historical records to provide an answer, they crafted their own explanations, stories that were passed down through generations around hearths and in village squares. In the Cappadocian region of Turkey, where Derinkuyu and Kaymaklı lie hidden, local folklore is thick with tales of these places. One persistent legend speaks of immense treasures left behind by the original builders, chests of gold, jeweled religious relics, and artifacts of unimaginable value, all guarded not by men but by powerful supernatural beings. Some stories describe jinn, spirits made of smokeless fire, who were either trapped within the cities or appointed as their eternal guardians, cursing any greedy soul who dared to disturb their slumber. Other tales reach back even further into the mists of time, attributing the construction not to human hands at all, but to a race of giants or to the direct intervention of ancient gods. These myths served a dual purpose. They offered a fantastical reason for the city's existence, but they also acted as a powerful deterrent, a form of oral, keep-out sign that protected these fragile, unstable sites from looters and vandals for centuries. This human tendency to explain the unknown with the supernatural is a global phenomenon. Far from Turkey, in the misty glens of Scotland, the numerous underground chambers and souterrains are deeply entwined with fairy lore. These were not seen as mere hiding places but as gateways to the otherworld, the domain of the Aos, the powerful and often capricious fairy folk. To enter such a place without permission or to disturb a fairy mound was to invite terrible misfortune upon oneself and one's family. The folklore suggested that these sites were used for rituals not by humans but by the fairies themselves, or that they were places where humans could attempt to appease these powerful spirits with offerings. The darkness and strangeness of the underground naturally lent itself to associations with the supernatural, the unconscious, and the realm of things that should not be lightly disturbed. Historians and folklorists point out that these stories, while fantastical, often contain a tiny, hard kernel of truth buried within them. A legend about a hidden treasure might have sprung from the very real discovery of a forgotten storage jar containing a few ancient coins. A tale of a guardian spirit could be a folk memory of a particularly fierce group of defenders who knew the labyrinthine passages intimately and seemed to appear and vanish at will to strike at invaders. The widespread myth that these cities were all connected by vast, secret tunnels, while often exaggerated, likely stems from the very real, practical need for escape routes and communication between different sections of a single complex or between nearby communities. The folklore, in its own poetic way, was preserving a distorted but recognizable history, encoding practical realities into the language of magic and wonder. This compulsion to mythologize speaks to something fundamental in the human psyche. We are pattern-seeking creatures, deeply uncomfortable with unanswered questions. A blank space on a map or a door with no known key is an irresistible invitation to our imagination. For the local people living atop these cities for generations, the silent, hidden world beneath their feet was a constant, subtle presence. The myths they created were a way of domesticating that mystery, of building a relationship with it, and of asserting a form of understanding and control. By populating the darkness with giants, spirits, or fairies, they were giving it a name and a set of rules, making it less terrifying and more a part of their known world. These stories are not lies, they are a different kind of truth, a cultural and emotional response to the awe-inspiring works of their ancestors, a testament to the enduring power of these places to capture the human spirit long after their original purpose was forgotten. The moment of rediscovery for these lost cities often feels like something straight out of an adventure novel, a sudden rupture in time where the past reaches out and grabs the present. Perhaps the most famous of these stories unfolded in 1963 in the Cappadocian town of Derinkuyu. A local man was simply renovating his home, a routine task of knocking down an old wall, when his hammer broke through to reveal not more rock but a dark, empty void. Curiosity overpowered caution, and he widened the hole, peering into a mysterious chamber that no one had seen for centuries. This wasn't just a small cellar, it was the entrance to an entire world, a hidden doorway to an 18-level city that had been completely sealed and forgotten. His single act of home improvement accidentally rewrote history, pulling a massive subterranean metropolis back from the brink of eternal obscurity. It's a powerful reminder that the most profound historical discoveries can sometimes begin with the most ordinary of actions. This narrative of chance discovery is complemented by the slow, meticulous work of dedicated archaeology. On the other side of the Mediterranean, in the stunning Italian hill town of Orvieto, the process was far more systematic but no less dramatic. For generations, residents whispered about strange cavities and tunnels beneath their cellars, but it wasn't until organized archaeological efforts began that the full scope was understood. Researchers carefully excavated and reinforced passages, revealing a sprawling labyrinth of over 1,200 tunnels, staircases, and chambers carved by the Etruscans over 2,500 years ago. Unlike the sudden revelation in Derinkuyu, unearthing Orvieto's underground was a painstaking puzzle, piecing together a complex network that served everything from olive oil production to ritualistic ceremonies. This methodical approach highlights the two sides of archaeological discovery, the breathtaking moment of finding something lost and the long, careful labor of understanding what it truly means. The tools of the trade have evolved dramatically, moving far beyond the simple shovel and brush. Today, technology acts as a kind of X-ray vision for archaeologists, allowing them to see into the earth without ever breaking ground. Light detection and ranging, or LiDAR, uses laser pulses shot from aircraft to create incredibly detailed 3D maps of the terrain below, revealing the subtle indentations and patterns that hint at man-made structures buried deep underneath. Similarly, ground-penetrating radar sends electromagnetic waves into the earth and reads the signals that bounce back, painting a picture of hidden walls, voids, and artifacts. These technologies are revolutionary because they are non-invasive. They allow researchers to map and explore without risking a single collapse or damaging a single ancient wall. It's like being given a set of blueprints for a city nobody knew existed, guiding excavations with a precision that previous generations could only dream of. However, the work is fraught with immense challenges that go far beyond just finding these sites. The moment a sealed underground city is opened, it becomes incredibly vulnerable. The stable environment that preserved it for millennia is suddenly breached, introducing new air, humidity, and temperature fluctuations that can cause rapid deterioration. The soft volcanic tuff that was so easy to carve is also notoriously fragile. Stabilizing ceilings and walls to prevent catastrophic collapses is a constant, delicate engineering problem. Then there is the puzzle of interpretation. An archaeologist might uncover a perfectly circular pit or a room with a single, odd niche, without any written records determining its purpose. Was it for storage, for ritual, or something else entirely? Becomes a complex game of historical deduction, comparing findings with other sites and relying on fragmentary clues. Each artifact, from a broken piece of pottery to a seed left in a hearth, becomes a vital piece of evidence in reconstructing the daily lives of people who went to extraordinary lengths to leave no trace. Ultimately, the process of rediscovery is about more than just maps and artifacts. It is a collaborative effort to reconnect with our shared human story. Archaeologists work hand in hand with local communities, who often hold the oral histories and deep cultural knowledge that can provide context for a strange symbol or a hidden room. Historians then take these physical findings and weave them into the broader tapestry of known events, helping us understand how these hidden cities fit into periods of war, migration, and cultural change. Each new find, whether a beautifully painted fresco in a hidden chapel or a simple tool left behind in a hurry, adds a sentence, a paragraph, a chapter to the story of humanity. It is a powerful reminder that history is not a static thing written in stone, but a dynamic, living narrative that is constantly being unearthed, re-examined, and rewritten, offering us new glimpses into the ingenuity and resilience of those who came before us. The very elements that created these underground marvels, the soft, malleable rock, are now the source of their greatest vulnerability. These cities are in a constant, slow-motion race against time, threatened by a relentless combination of environmental forces and the very human fascination they inspire. Primary enemy is often water. Over centuries, even minimal water infiltration can be devastating. It seeps into cracks, freezes, and expands in winter, and gradually prizes the rock apart in a process known as sprawling. In more dramatic events, a single heavy rainstorm can flood lower chambers, destabilizing foundations and washing away irreplaceable layers of ancient soil that contain tiny, telling artifacts like seeds, pollen, and tool fragments. Then there is the ever-present risk of seismic activity. While these structures have survived earthquakes for millennia, each tremor stresses the ancient pillars and ceilings, creating new fractures and compounding old weaknesses. The rock itself, though hardened over time, is still susceptible to erosion from wind and subtle shifts in the water table, a silent, crumbling decay that is often invisible until a section suddenly gives way. Perhaps the most complex challenge comes from a source of good intentions: tourism. The global interest in these sites is a double-edged sword. The revenue from visitors is essential for funding conservation efforts and supporting local communities, yet the sheer volume of human presence creates its own set of destructive pressures. The simple act of thousands of footsteps each year wears down original staircases and floor surfaces, a form of erosion as real as that caused by wind or water. The constant exhalation of moisture and carbon dioxide from crowds alters the delicate microclimate within the sealed chambers, potentially encouraging the growth of damaging molds or causing salt to leach from the rock. Even with the best supervision, accidental damage occurs: a backpack scraping against a wall, a hand touching a fragile fresco for a photograph. More maliciously, though thankfully rare, instances of graffiti or vandalism scar these ancient walls, an act that destroys not just the surface but the story it holds. Managing this delicate balance between access and preservation is the central dilemma for archaeologists and site managers today. In response, conservationists are employing a mix of ancient wisdom and cutting-edge technology. At sites like Derinkuyu, the approach is one of careful control. Visitor numbers are strictly limited. Pathways are clearly defined on raised walkways to prevent wear on the original floors, and lighting is low intensity and carefully placed to minimize heat and humidity changes. In some areas, sensitive chambers may be roped off entirely or only visible from a distance, a necessary sacrifice to ensure their survival. Structural engineers have installed discrete metal supports and rock bolts in areas identified as weak points, not to rebuild but to stabilize and prevent further collapse. Sophisticated drainage systems are being installed to divert groundwater away from critical walls, fighting moisture at its source. The goal is never to make the city look new, but to halt its decay and allow it to age gracefully, preserving its authentic, ancient character for future scholars and visitors. Yet, for all these efforts, the mission is perpetually hampered by a critical shortage of funding and resources. Preservation is expensive, requiring specialized skills, materials, and continuous monitoring. Many of these sites are located in regions where financial resources are stretched thin, forcing difficult choices about which sections to save and which might be left to slowly deteriorate. This is why the work of international bodies like UNESCO is so vital, providing not just funds but also expertise and a global platform to highlight the importance of these cultural treasures. The question we must collectively answer is not just how to preserve them, but why it matters so deeply. These cities are non-renewable resources. A collapsed chamber or a defaced wall is not like a ruined building that can be reconstructed. The original material, context, and information are lost forever. With that loss, a unique, first-hand chapter of the human story is erased. A direct connection to our ancestors' ingenuity and resilience is severed. This brings us to a crucial reflective point for our own role in this story. How do we, as modern explorers, satisfy our curiosity without becoming agents of destruction? The answer lies in embracing a philosophy of respectful visitation, following guided paths, resisting the urge to touch, and understanding that our privilege to witness these wonders comes with the responsibility to protect them. Furthermore, technology offers incredible new tools for this balance. High-resolution 3D laser scanning can create perfect digital replicas of entire cities, allowing for detailed study and even virtual reality tours that provide access to those who cannot visit or to areas too fragile for the public. Drones can map inaccessible ventilation shafts, and sensitive sensors can monitor the slightest movement in the rock, providing early warnings long before the human eye could detect a problem. Our greatest hope for preserving these fragile worlds beneath the dust of time may lie in using the tools of the future to safeguard the past, ensuring that the silent stories carved in stone continue to be heard for centuries to come. The allure of these hidden stone worlds extends far beyond the realm of archaeology, deeply permeating our collective imagination and finding a powerful home in art, literature, and media. These ancient structures provide a rich, ready-made template for storytellers, offering a potent symbol of mystery, adventure, and the unknown that lies just beneath the surface of our everyday reality. The very concept of a vast, forgotten city underground taps into something fundamental within us, a primal curiosity that creators have harnessed for generations to build their own fictional worlds. This cultural exchange is a two-way street. Just as real subterranean cities inspire artists, those artistic interpretations then shape how the public perceives and romanticizes these historical sites, creating a fascinating feedback loop between fact and fiction. Perhaps no author better exemplifies this inspiration than J.R.R. Tolkien, a scholar deeply versed in ancient myths and histories. His magnificent underground realms in The Lord of the Rings are clearly imbued with the same awe and grandeur that real sites like Derinkuyu evoke. The dwarven kingdom of Moria, with its endless halls, towering pillars, and deep mines, is more than a setting. It is a character itself, a testament to a lost civilization's engineering prowess that has been reclaimed by darkness and mystery. Tolkien didn't just create a cave. He built a sprawling, multi-level city with a history, a culture, and a tragic fate, mirroring the way real subterranean cities speak to us of past ingenuity and present abandonment. This literary tradition continues in modern fantasy, where underground fortresses and elven sanctuaries hidden from human sight are standard tropes, all echoing the very real human impulse to build and hide. Cinema has eagerly embraced this potential for visual spectacle and narrative tension. Films like Journey to the Center of the Earth and its various adaptations take the core idea and push it to its most fantastical extreme, populating the underground with prehistoric creatures and dazzling crystal caves. While scientifically outlandish, these stories are powered by the same sense of wonder that drives real-world exploration. More grounded films, like the horror classic The Descent, use the claustrophobic, pitch-black reality of underground exploration to tap into our most basic fears of confinement and the unknown, transforming the ancient, protective walls of a real subterranean city into a terrifying, inescapable trap. Each frame leverages the innate psychological power of being buried alive in history, a fear and fascination that these real cities simultaneously evoke and defy. The interactive world of video games is perhaps where the influence of subterranean cities is most directly felt and experienced. Games are built on exploration and discovery, and what better setting than a vast, unexplored network of tunnels and chambers? In the boundless creativity of Minecraft, the entire gameplay loop of mining deep underground for resources and then building elaborate safe havens against the monsters that emerge in the dark is a direct, almost primal reflection of the very reasons real underground cities were constructed: security and resource gathering. Massive role-playing games like The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim are filled with ancient Nord tombs and dwarven ruins dungeons that are essentially sprawling subterranean complexes, complete with living quarters, temples, and traps, inviting players to become the modern-day adventurers uncovering a lost world. These digital experiences allow millions to engage directly with the thrill of underground exploration, fostering a deep, intuitive appreciation for the concepts of these historical marvels. Beyond mere setting, artists and writers often use the subterranean as a powerful metaphor, it becomes a representation of the subconscious mind, a hidden, labyrinthine space where memories, fears, and desires are stored away from the light of conscious thought. It can symbolize the hidden underbelly of society, the forgotten or ignored aspects of our culture that nonetheless support the glittering surface world above. This metaphorical weight adds profound depth to creative works, allowing them to explore complex themes through a universally understood image. Experts in cultural studies point out that this enduring and cross-medium appeal isn't coincidental. It stems from the universal themes these sites embody: the eternal struggle for survival against overwhelming odds, the allure of secrecy and the possession of hidden knowledge, and the innate human drive to explore the boundaries of our world. These are stories we never tire of telling because they are fundamental to our experience. This constant cultural reproduction inevitably shapes how we view the real historical sites. There's an undeniable romanticism applied to them. We see them through a lens of adventure and mystery that might overlook the harsh, difficult reality of daily life within them. Yet, this romanticism is also a powerful tool for preservation. It generates public interest and awareness, turning archaeological sites into destinations and ensuring they receive the attention and funding needed for their study and protection. The fictionalized versions, for all their artistic license, serve as a gateway drug to the real, complex history, bridging the gap between a distant, dusty past and our vibrant, modern present. They prove that these cities carved in stone and silence are not relics locked in time, but living ideas that continue to evolve, inspire, and captivate the human spirit. The exploration of these hidden worlds is far from a closed chapter. In many ways, it feels like we are just turning the first few pages of a vast underground library. The future of discovery is being reshaped by a quiet revolution in technology, offering us a kind of magic that previous generations of archaeologists could only dream of. Imagine a drone no larger than a bird, hovering over the rugged landscapes of Cappadocia. Its mission isn't to take scenic photographs for tourists, but to use sophisticated light detection and ranging systems, or LiDAR, to fire millions of laser pulses at the ground. These pulses penetrate dense vegetation and bounce back, not to create a map of the surface, but to generate an incredibly detailed, three-dimensional model of the Earth beneath, revealing the subtle, telltale depressions and patterns that betray the presence of man-made voids and tunnels hidden for millennia. This technology allows researchers to literally see through solid rock, identifying potential new sites for exploration without ever putting a shovel in the ground, preserving these fragile time capsules from any unnecessary disturbance. This non-invasive approach is complemented by other breathtaking tools. Ground-penetrating radar can be deployed across large areas, sending electromagnetic waves into the Earth and reading the echoes to paint a picture of hidden walls and chambers. 3D laser scanners can be sent into already discovered sections to create perfect, millimeter-accurate digital replicas of every corridor and room. These virtual models are more than just records. They are interactive maps that scholars from around the world can study collaboratively, taking precise measurements and running structural analyses from the comfort of their labs. This isn't just about finding new cities. It's about understanding the ones we already know in infinitely greater depth, uncovering architectural details and construction sequences that the naked eye could easily miss in the dim light of a tunnel. Where might these new technologies lead us? The geological conditions that made Cappadocia ideal for underground construction, soft, volcanic tuff rock, are not unique to Turkey. Vast regions of Iran, for instance, particularly around the city of Kandavan, feature similar soft rock formations and a long history of cave dwellings. Central Asia, with its complex history of Silk Road trade and countless invasions, is another prime candidate where communities would have had every reason to seek refuge from passing armies. The possibility of discovering an entirely new network, perhaps even larger than Derinkuyu, in a place where no one has ever thought to look, is a thrilling and very real prospect for the next decade of exploration. But the future of this field isn't solely about finding new empty spaces. It's about filling them with a richer understanding of the people who lived there. The real treasure lies in the microscopic details. Future research will increasingly focus on bioarchaeology, the analysis of ancient DNA from skeletal remains, and isotopic analysis of bones and teeth. These techniques can tell us astonishingly intimate details about the inhabitants. Were they a homogeneous group or a melting pot of different ethnicities drawn together by shared danger? Did their diet change during long periods of confinement, shifting from varied surface foods to a reliance on stored grains and legumes? We could uncover evidence of diseases that plagued the community, or even trace familial relationships between individuals buried in different chambers. A single pottery shard, analyzed for residue, can reveal not just that they stored wine, but the specific type of grape they cultivated and the spices they might have used. Furthermore, the very forces that threaten these sites, like climate change and urban expansion, may ironically become agents of discovery. As increased erosion wears away at cliff faces, it could expose sealed entrances that have been hidden for centuries. Major construction projects for new roads or buildings, when accompanied by mandatory archaeological surveys, could break ground and unexpectedly unveil the ceiling of a forgotten chamber, much like the original discovery of Derinkuyu. Each of these potential finds reminds us that history is not a static, dusty exhibit but a dynamic, living field of study. The ground beneath our feet is not just dirt and rock. It is the greatest archive we have, and we are only now developing the tools to read its deepest, most secret stories. This forward-looking journey promises to continually rewrite our understanding of the past, ensuring that the allure of what lies buried will captivate curious minds for generations to come. It's almost impossible to walk through the silent, stone corridors of a place like Derinkuyu or Kaymaklı and not feel a strange, personal tug, a connection that stretches across centuries and speaks directly to something deep within us. This isn't just about admiring ancient architecture. It's about recognizing ourselves in their struggles and their triumphs. We stand in a room carved by hand over 1,000 years ago, and we are suddenly face to face with the undeniable reality that the people who sought refuge here were not so different from you and me. They loved, they feared, they hoped for safety and a future for their children. They were ordinary people who, when faced with extraordinary circumstances, did something truly extraordinary. They didn't just hide, they built a world. This realization shifts history from a dry list of dates and events into a living, breathing story of human resilience, a narrative that is deeply, profoundly relatable. This personal engagement invites us to ask ourselves some very intimate and challenging questions. What would it actually be like to wake up every day in that permanent twilight, with the weight of the entire world literally above your head? How would you handle the constant, low-grade anxiety of knowing that your entire existence depended on absolute silence and secrecy? Think about the simple act of a child's laughter, a sound we take for granted as a sign of joy. Down there, it could have been a deadly risk. How would you maintain a sense of normalcy, of community, of hope when cut off from the sun, the seasons, and the open sky? These aren't just academic exercises, they are bridges of empathy. By mentally walking in their shoes, even for a moment, we stop seeing them as distant historical figures and start understanding them as people. We begin to appreciate not just the scale of their achievement, but the immense emotional and psychological strength it must have required. This reflective process is something historians and archaeologists actively encourage. They point out that when we engage with history on this emotional level, it ceases to be a passive subject and becomes an active conversation. We're no longer just learning facts, we're connecting with the universal human experiences of fear, hope, and the relentless drive to protect what we hold dear. That carved cross on a wall isn't just a symbol of faith, it's a testament to someone's need for comfort in a terrifying time. A small, worn-out toy found in a corner isn't just an artifact, it's a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, people nurtured light and life. This connection is why preserving these sites is so critically important. They are not cold, dead ruins, they are mirrors. They reflect our own capacity for innovation in the face of crisis, our deep-seated need for community, and our enduring spirit of survival. They show us what we are capable of, for better or worse, when our backs are against the wall. If this journey into the depths has ignited a spark of curiosity, you are far from alone, and the path to further discovery is rich with incredible resources waiting to be explored. For a captivating and broad overview that feels more like an adventure than a history lesson, you can begin with books like Graham Hancock's Underworld, which takes you on a global tour of ancient, flooded, and buried sites, blending archaeology with a sense of wonder that perfectly matches the subject's mystery. The television series Cities of the Underworld is another fantastic entry point, hosted by explorer Don Wildman, who literally descends into these hidden spaces, bringing their stories to life with a contagious energy that makes you feel like you're right there with him, brushing the dust from a 1,000-year-old wall. For those who prefer their information vetted and meticulously detailed, the digital world offers unparalleled access. The UNESCO World Heritage Center website is an essential destination, providing not just lists of protected sites like Cappadocia's Gurim National Park, but detailed reports on their significance, preservation status, and the ongoing efforts to protect them. When you are ready to move beyond general interest and into the realm of deep scholarship, online academic databases such as JSTOR or Google Scholar open the door to peer-reviewed papers and archaeological reports. Reading a field study from the archaeologist who first mapped a new chamber in Kaymaklı offers a completely different, thrilling perspective. It's the raw data of discovery, allowing you to see the evidence and form your own interpretations alongside the experts. Of course, nothing can truly replace the transformative experience of walking these ancient passages yourself. Feeling the cool, still air on your skin and seeing the intricate tool marks carved by a person centuries ago creates a connection that no book or screen can ever replicate. If you are fortunate enough to visit a site like Derinkuyu or the ancient tunnels of Orvieto, remember that you are a guest in a fragile museum. Adhering to guidelines, staying on marked paths, not touching the walls, and following the instructions of guides is not just about rules, it is an act of respect, ensuring that these wonders remain intact for the curious minds who will follow in your footsteps. Beyond solitary reading or travel, one of the most rewarding ways to deepen your interest is to find your tribe. Online forums on platforms like Reddit, dedicated Facebook groups, or specialized archaeology forums are bustling with thousands of amateurs and professionals alike. These are places where you can ask questions about a puzzling symbol you saw in a documentary, share your own photos from a trip, or simply listen in on debates about the latest ground-penetrating radar findings. This communal aspect turns a personal interest into a shared passion, connecting you with a global network of people who are just as fascinated by what lies beneath the surface as you are. The ultimate reason to take these steps is to move from being a passive viewer to an active participant in the story. These resources empower you to move beyond the narrative presented in any single video or book, to cross-reference facts, and to develop your own informed perspectives on these enduring mysteries. This journey of independent learning ensures that the conversation about our hidden history never grows stagnant, continually enriched by new voices, new questions, and new discoveries from people like you, who looked at the ground beneath their feet and decided to dig a little deeper into the past. The quiet hum of a drone overhead or the methodical sweep of a ground-penetrating radar unit across a field may not seem as dramatic as a hammer breaking through a wall to reveal a hidden chamber, but these technologies are fundamentally rewriting the rules of archaeological discovery. We have moved from an era of accidental finds and laborious, sometimes destructive, excavation into a new age of digital exploration, where we can see through solid earth and map entire hidden cities without ever disturbing a single stone. This technological leap is not just about adding new tools to the toolbox, it's about transforming our entire relationship with these fragile sites, shifting our role from intruders to prescient guardians. Consider the magic of LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. This system, often mounted on aircraft or drones, works like a super-powered scanner. It fires millions of laser pulses at the ground, and by measuring the precise time it takes for each pulse to bounce back, it can create an exquisitely detailed three-dimensional map of the surface topography. But its true power lies in its ability to see through obstacles. In a forested area, LiDAR can strip away the vegetation digitally, revealing the ground beneath. And in places like Cappadocia, it can detect the most subtle, almost imperceptible depressions and anomalies in the terrain, the telltale signs of a collapsed ventilation shaft or a buried entranceway that would be completely invisible to the human eye walking across the same ground. It's like having a detailed set of architectural blueprints for a city we didn't even know existed, allowing us to pinpoint exactly where to look without a single destructive test pit. On the ground, another incredible tool takes over: ground-penetrating radar, or GPR. This device looks like a lawnmower pushed slowly across the earth, but it's sending electromagnetic waves into the ground and listening to the echoes. Different materials, solid rock, an air-filled void, a backfilled tunnel, reflect these waves back with a unique signature. By interpreting this data, archaeologists can generate what is essentially a sonogram of the subsurface, revealing the outlines of walls, chambers, and tunnels sometimes dozens of feet deep. This technology is invaluable for assessing the full extent of a known site. While we might have mapped the first few levels of a city like Kaymaklı by hand, GPR can reveal that it extends far beyond the currently explored areas, or that a seemingly dead-end corridor actually continues on, blocked by a collapse that happened centuries ago. It allows us to understand the complete skeleton of these underground complexes before we ever make physical contact. The data from these technologies doesn't just sit in a report. It feeds into powerful computer software that can build breathtakingly accurate 3D virtual models. This is where the past truly comes alive for both researchers and the public. Archaeologists can now walk through a digital replica of an entire subterranean city, taking precise measurements of doorways and ceiling heights to understand traffic flow, or using lighting simulation software to see how sunlight from a ventilation shaft would have illuminated a chapel at different times of the day. This isn't just for analysis, it's a powerful tool for preservation. By creating a perfect digital twin, we have a permanent record of the site in its current state. If a section of tunnel were to collapse in the future, we would have its exact dimensions and every detail of its carvings preserved forever in the digital realm. Furthermore, these models can be used to create immersive virtual reality experiences, allowing anyone with a headset anywhere in the world to explore these incredible places without contributing to the physical wear and tear of tourism. Looking ahead, the next frontier is artificial intelligence. The amount of data collected by LiDAR, GPR, and 3D scanners is staggering. AI algorithms are being trained to sift through this mountain of information, looking for patterns that might escape even the most experienced human eye. An AI could analyze the architectural style of every carved room in a massive complex and identify that one chamber was built in a completely different era, something that might take a researcher years of painstaking comparison to notice. It could cross-reference geological data with structural maps to predict which sections of a city are at the highest risk of collapse, allowing for preemptive stabilization. Some experts even speculate that AI could one day decipher the purpose of those mysterious, unexplained rooms by comparing their dimensions, features, and locations to a global database of known structures from hundreds of archaeological sites. This isn't about replacing archaeologists, it's about giving them a powerful partner that can handle the immense scale of data, freeing them to focus on the deeper questions of interpretation and human story. This fusion of technology and traditional scholarship promises a future where our exploration of the past is more precise, more inclusive, and more protective than ever before, ensuring that these hidden stories are not only found but are preserved for all time. While ancient people carved into the earth for refuge and ritual, our modern world has embraced the underground for a new set of pragmatic and often futuristic reasons. Today, we don't typically build entire cities to hide from invaders, but we have created vast, complex subterranean networks that serve as the arteries of our metropolitan life. In Montreal, Canada, the aptly named Réseau, or Underground City, is a stunning example of over 20 miles of interconnected tunnels that link shopping centers, hotels, office towers, universities, and metro stations. This isn't a place of concealment, it's a vibrant, bustling alternative downtown, a climate-controlled haven that allows the city's life to thrive comfortably during the frigid winter months and humid summers. It represents a shift in motivation from sheer survival to one of efficiency, convenience, and urban planning, turning the challenge of a harsh environment into an opportunity for innovative living. This utilitarian approach extends far beyond comfortable shopping. Across the globe, nations have invested in deeply buried secure facilities designed for continuity of government and military command in the face of existential threats. The Cheyenne Mountain Complex in Colorado, perhaps the most famous of these, is a city within a mountain. Built during the Cold War to withstand a nuclear blast, it houses a self-sufficient network of operations centers, complete with its own power generators, water supply, and even a freshwater spring. Its modern counterparts include data storage facilities carved into old mines, where the Earth's constant cool temperature and natural insulation provide perfect, low-energy conditions for the servers that power our digital world. The purpose has evolved from protecting human lives from swords and spears to protecting data, infrastructure, and command structures from cyber attacks, espionage, or catastrophic events. Despite this dramatic shift in purpose from the sacred and defensive to the logistical and strategic, a powerful and inspiring common thread connects the ancient builder to the modern engineer. It is the enduring human impulse to use the space beneath our feet to solve our most pressing problems. Whether the problem is a Mongol horde, a bitter winter, a nuclear missile, or an overheating server farm, the solution has often been the same: go underground. The Earth provides unparalleled natural advantages: superior insulation, inherent structural strength, and profound security through concealment. This isn't a forgotten art, it's a principle that has been rediscovered and refined across millennia. In fact, experts studying these fields point out that modern engineers often arrive at solutions that eerily echo ancient wisdom. The fundamental principles of passive ventilation, using convection currents to cycle air, or the use of arched ceilings to distribute weight and prevent collapse, are concepts that the builders of Derinkuyu understood intuitively and that are now calculated with advanced software but applied toward the same goal of creating safe, stable, and habitable underground spaces. This comparison does more than just highlight a clever historical parallel. It offers us a crucial lens through which to view our future. As our global population continues to grow and urban space becomes increasingly scarce and expensive, the question naturally arises, will we see a new wave of underground habitation? The challenges of climate change, with its increasing frequency of extreme weather events, might make the stable temperatures of the subsurface even more attractive. Architects and urban planners are already seriously proposing concepts for underground parks lit by fiber optics, subterranean farms using hydroponics, and entire residential districts built in excavated spaces. The lessons from ancient cities are invaluable here. They teach us about the psychological importance of managing light and space to prevent claustrophobia, the critical need for flawless air and water quality management, and the vital role of creating communal areas that foster social connection. Lessons learned the hard way over centuries of trial and error. Looking at the past in conversation with the present ultimately reframes these ancient subterranean cities not as dusty relics, but as active participants in a long and ongoing conversation about human adaptation. They are a testament to a specific kind of brilliance, one that looks at a landscape and sees not just its surface, but its potential. The ancient Cappadocian looking at a soft volcanic cliff face and seeing a hidden sanctuary is engaged in the same fundamental act of imagination as the modern engineer looking at a geological survey and seeing the perfect location for a secure data vault. Both are leveraging the Earth's own properties to build a safer, more functional, and more resilient world. This enduring ingenuity, this unwavering drive to innovate in the face of constraint, is the true legacy of the underground builders, and it is a spirit that will undoubtedly continue to shape our world from the bedrock up for centuries to come. The decision to build downward was never made in a vacuum. It was a direct, brilliant response to the relentless demands of the local environment. These ancient architects weren't just working with rock. They were engaged in a deep dialogue with their climate, and their underground cities are masterclasses in environmental adaptation. In Cappadocia, the very geology that defined the region provided the perfect raw material. The soft, malleable volcanic tuff was a gift from ancient eruptions, a rock firm enough to provide structural integrity, yet soft enough to be carved with the simple iron tools available at the time. But the advantages went far beyond easy excavation. This same volcanic rock possessed incredible insulating properties. Once you descended just a few meters below the surface, the temperature stabilized to a constant, comfortable level, somewhere around 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. This natural climate control was a life-saving feature. It provided a cool refuge from the scorching, arid heat of a Cappadocian summer, where surface temperatures could easily soar into the 90s, and a warm haven during the bitterly cold winters, when the landscape above could be blanketed in snow and ice. The Earth itself became a giant, passive thermostat, ensuring survival and comfort with zero energy expenditure. This principle of using the underground for environmental buffering was a global strategy, adapted to meet a stunning variety of climatic challenges. On the other side of the world, on China's vast Loess Plateau, communities faced a completely different set of hardships. Here, the challenge wasn't just temperature, but the very air itself. The plateau is composed of a fine, wind-blown sediment called loess, which is incredibly fertile but also incredibly prone to creating massive, suffocating dust storms. The solution was the yeadong, or cave dwelling. By carving homes directly into the vertical faces of the region's steep hillsides, people found protection from the abrasive, relentless winds. The loess, much like Cappadocia's tuff, was easy to dig yet stable, and the underground temperatures provided a consistent environment safe from the dramatic seasonal swings above. In the deserts of Tunisia, the famous underground villages of Matmata offered a similar respite. The brutal, unrelenting North African sun made surface life exhausting, but descending into the earth provided immediate relief, with the subterranean rooms remaining deliciously cool even at the height of the day. What is truly remarkable is how these adaptations were about more than just comfort. They were about sophisticated resource management, particularly the most precious resource of all, water. In arid and semi-arid regions, every drop of water was counted, and the underground environment was key to conservation. The stable, cool temperatures drastically reduced evaporation rates. Large storage jars, known as pithoi, were sunk into the floors of underground chambers to hold water, wine, and olive oil, their contents preserved far longer than they would have been on the surface. In some cases, the cities were strategically located to tap directly into underground aquifers, securing a water source that was not only reliable but also protected from enemy contamination and the evaporative power of the sun. This holistic approach to living with the environment, rather than fighting against it, demonstrates a profound ecological wisdom. They weren't trying to conquer their climate, they were learning from it and using its own rules to thrive within it. This ancient wisdom offers a powerful, resonant lesson for our modern era of climate change and environmental uncertainty. As we grapple with extreme weather, rising energy costs, and the need for sustainable living, the principles demonstrated by these subterranean cities are more relevant than ever. The concept of passive temperature regulation using the Earth's mass to heat and cool our homes is a cornerstone of modern green architecture. Geothermal heat pumps, green roofs, and earth-sheltered homes are all high-tech echoes of the same basic idea that the builders of Derinkuyu understood millennia ago. Their approach was the ultimate form of sustainability, low-impact, energy-efficient, and perfectly attuned to the local ecosystem. They show us that resilience isn't always about building stronger walls against the elements. Sometimes it's about intelligently retreating into the embrace of the earth itself, finding security and stability in the very ground we walk on. Imagine the sheer weight of silence and darkness, the profound isolation of being sealed away from the sun for months, perhaps even years. In such an environment, the greatest challenge wasn't just finding enough air, water, or food. It was preserving the very fabric of community, the social bonds that make us human. The architectural genius of these underground cities would have been meaningless without an equally sophisticated social structure to govern daily life. This was a world where every resource was precious, every sound could betray your position, and every interpersonal conflict could escalate into a threat to the entire community's survival. Their success depended on a deeply ingrained system of cooperation, a social contract forged in the fires of necessity. To manage this, these communities almost certainly developed a clear, albeit likely informal, leadership structure. While we have no written constitutions from these sealed worlds, the complexity of their operations suggests a council of elders, respected family heads, or religious figures would have been tasked with making critical decisions. This leadership wasn't about power, but about stewardship. They would have been responsible for the most delicate of balances, rationing the food stores to last an unknown length of confinement, assigning tasks based on skill and strength, managing the intricate water and air systems, and organizing security watches at the sealed entrances. Their authority would have been derived less from force and more from collective trust, wisdom, and the undeniable fact that everyone's survival was inextricably linked. A poor decision by a leader could mean starvation or discovery for everyone. The physical layout of the cities themselves provides the strongest evidence for this highly organized society. This was not a chaotic warren where people fended for themselves. Spaces were meticulously designated for specific communal functions. In Derinkuyu, you can clearly identify vast kitchens with shared hearths and grinding stones, indicating food was likely prepared and distributed collectively rather than by individual families. Large, open common areas served as central plazas, the underground equivalent of a town square where people could gather for announcements, shared meals, or simply to see each other's faces by lamplight, a vital antidote to the isolating darkness. The presence of dedicated churches and chapels points to religion as a central pillar of social cohesion, providing not just spiritual solace but also a shared set of values and rules that helped maintain order and morale. Enforcing these rules without a police force or a judicial system required a powerful social framework built on mutual dependence and shared belief. The primary mechanism was likely a powerful culture of shame and collective responsibility. In a community where everyone knows everyone and your survival depends on your neighbor's cooperation, transgressions would have been self-policing. Hoarding food, creating excessive noise, or refusing to perform your duties would not just be a personal failing. It would be a direct threat to the entire group, and the social consequences would have been severe. Furthermore, shared religious beliefs would have provided a powerful moral compass, framing cooperation and sacrifice as virtues and selfishness as a sin. The constant, palpable reality of their mutual dependence was the ultimate enforcer, the understanding that harmony was not an ideal, but a prerequisite for life itself. Yet we must be careful not to romanticize this existence. The psychological pressures of such intense, confined living must have been immense, inevitably leading to friction and tension. Close quarters, limited privacy, the constant background hum of fear, and the monotony of a sunless routine would have strained even the strongest bonds. Disputes over resource allocation, parenting styles, or simple personal annoyances would have been magnified in the echoing silence. The leadership's most difficult task may not have been managing food, but managing human emotions, mediating conflicts, boosting morale during moments of collective despair, and finding ways to reinforce the communal spirit that kept everyone focused on their shared goal of outlasting the threat above. This remarkable historical example offers profound insights for our own modern world. Their model is a masterclass in crisis management and community-led resilience. It shows us that in extreme situations, rigid hierarchies can be less effective than structures built on trust, clear communication, and a universally understood common purpose. Their experience is directly applicable to modern concepts of disaster preparedness, suggesting that the strength of a community's social fabric is just as important as its stockpile of supplies. Urban planners today can look to these ancient cities as a radical example of how shared spaces, from communal kitchens to central courtyards, are not luxuries but essential infrastructure for fostering the social connections that hold a community together, especially under pressure. The silent stone walls of Derinkuyu remind us that the most enduring structures we can build are not made of rock, but of trust, cooperation, and a shared will to persevere. For the early Christians of Cappadocia, the act of descending into the earth was far more than a tactical retreat. It was a profound spiritual journey, a literal descent into a sanctuary that mirrored the solitude and sanctity they sought in their faith. These hidden rock-cut churches, with crosses carefully etched into the walls and biblical scenes painted in fading pigments, were not afterthoughts. They were the very heart of these underground communities. In a world where practicing their religion above ground could mean persecution or death, the seclusion of the underground provided the ultimate safe haven for worship. But this safety also cultivated a unique environment for devotion. The constant darkness, broken only by the flickering light of oil lamps, would have focused the mind inward. The silence, so vital for security, would have amplified the power of whispered prayers and hymns, making each ritual an intensely personal and powerful encounter with the divine. The physical isolation from the everyday world above helped create a separate sacred reality, a place set apart solely for connection with God. This connection between the subterranean and the spiritual is a thread that runs deep through human history, across continents and cultures. In Malta, the Hal-Saflieni Hypogeum, a labyrinthine underground complex carved over 3 levels, served as a massive burial site and temple for over 1,000 years. This was not a place for the living to hide, but for the dead to journey. The intricate chambers are believed to have been used for elaborate funeral rituals and ceremonies meant to honor ancestors and facilitate their passage into the afterlife. The architecture itself suggests a deep symbolic purpose. The way one moves from the upper levels toward the deepest, most central chamber feels like a deliberate, ritualistic descent into the womb of the earth, a place of profound mystery and transformation. The acoustic properties of certain rooms, like the famous Oracle Room, are so extraordinary that a single spoken word creates powerful, echoing reverberations throughout the entire space, likely used to create an otherworldly atmosphere during sacred rites, making the very air feel alive with spirit. Theologians and historians like Dr. Benjamin Lee point to a powerful psychological and symbolic reason for this enduring link. Across countless myths and religions, the earth is not just inert ground, it is a living, generative force. It is the source of life that springs forth from the soil, and it is the final resting place to which all life returns. This dual nature makes it inherently sacred and mysterious. To descend into the earth is to symbolically return to the source, to a primal state before creation. This seclusion from the familiar surface world, with all its distractions and profane concerns, naturally fosters a state of introspection and heightened spiritual awareness. The darkness itself becomes a canvas for the mind, encouraging a focus on inner light and revelation rather than external stimuli. In this context, the underground is not a void of nothingness, but a fertile ground for the soul, a place where the boundaries between the material and the spiritual worlds feel thin and permeable. This spiritual dimension fundamentally transforms our understanding of these underground cities. It lifts them from being merely impressive feats of engineering or desperate shelters for survival. They become multidimensional spaces where the practical need for protection seamlessly intertwined with the profound human need for meaning, transcendence, and connection to something greater than oneself. A rolling stone door was not just a defensive mechanism, it was a barrier that sealed a sacred community away from a hostile world, creating a purified space for worship. A ventilation shaft did not just bring air, it brought the breath of life into a holy sanctuary. By recognizing this sacred aspect, we see that these were not just places where people waited out a threat. They were places where faith was actively practiced, nourished, and preserved. They were incubators for religious identity, ensuring that a community's most cherished beliefs could not only survive but could deepen and flourish, even in the deepest darkness, leaving a legacy of devotion carved directly into the stone. While we often picture these underground cities as purely defensive fortresses, sealed off from the world, that view is incomplete. They were not merely shelters, they were also sophisticated economic engines carefully designed to generate, protect, and manage wealth. The very act of going underground was, in many ways, a brilliant economic strategy. Think about the most valuable commodities in an ancient agricultural society: harvested grain, pressed olive oil, fermented wine, and dried meats. All of these are highly susceptible to spoilage from heat, sunlight, and pests. By moving storage underground, these communities leveraged the Earth's natural refrigeration. The cool, dark, and stable temperatures acted as a perfect preservative, drastically reducing waste and allowing them to build up a secure surplus that could see them through a siege, a drought, or a harsh winter. This wasn't just about hoarding, it was about intelligent resource management on a massive scale. The archaeological evidence from Cappadocia brings this economic activity to life. In cities like Derinkuyu and Kaymaklı, explorers have found vast chambers dominated by rows of enormous ceramic jars called pithoi, each one sunk deep into the rock floor. These weren't just for water, they were the ancient equivalent of bank vaults and silos, holding the community's most vital assets. Even more telling are the discoveries of deep, circular pits, unmistakably identified as wine presses. This reveals an economy that extended beyond mere storage into active production. They weren't just hiding their food, they were processing their grapes underground, fermenting the juice in those massive jars, and creating a valuable, tradable commodity right there in the depths. The ability to produce wine, a product that actually improves with age, suggests a remarkable degree of economic planning and confidence in their long-term security. This leads to a fascinating and more speculative possibility that some of these subterranean networks may have functioned as clandestine trade hubs. Imagine a region gripped by war where the main trade routes on the surface are plagued by bandits and rival armies. How does commerce continue? It might have gone underground. A discreet, known entrance could have allowed trusted traders to descend into a designated chamber to barter goods away from prying eyes. A community with a surplus of wine could trade with another that had extra grain or forged tools. These secret meetings would have been a lifeline, allowing essential goods to circulate and economies to function even when the world above was in chaos. They wouldn't have been open markets, but rather highly controlled, secure exchanges that reinforced alliances and ensured the flow of critical resources between isolated communities, all hidden in plain sight. Managing an economy in such intense isolation required a radical departure from conventional market systems. There were no coins changing hands in these darkened corridors. The economy would have almost certainly operated on a sophisticated system of barter and communal resource sharing, governed by a strict social contract. A family's contribution might be measured in how much grain they provided to the central store, how many hours they spent manning the ventilation shafts, or how much wine their labor produced. In return, they would receive a fair share of the collective wealth. This required an incredible amount of trust and meticulous record-keeping, likely managed by a council of elders. The entire system was designed for one purpose: long-term sustainability. Every resource was accounted for, every ounce of productivity was maximized, and waste was minimized to an absolute degree. Their survival depended not on individual wealth, but on the equitable and efficient distribution of what the entire community could produce and save. When we examine their methods from a modern perspective, the lessons are strikingly relevant. In an era of climate change and concerns about resource scarcity, the principles these ancient people mastered are a blueprint for resilience and sustainable living. Their entire economic model was a closed-loop system, incredibly efficient and nearly zero waste. They used the natural geometry of the Earth for temperature control instead of energy-intensive refrigeration. They designed spaces for multiple purposes. A corridor could be a defensible choke point and a cool storage area. They understood that true security comes not from endless consumption, but from careful conservation and intelligent management of what you already have. Their example challenges our modern obsession with growth and encourages us to think about sustainability not in terms of new technology, but in terms of smarter, more adaptive use of the resources and spaces we already possess. This economic dimension completes our picture of these cities, transforming them from simple hideouts into complex, thriving, and brilliantly adaptable societies that understood the deep connection between security, sustainability, and community. One of the most enduring mysteries surrounding these underground marvels isn't about how they were built or lived in, but why they were ultimately left behind. Why would a community invest generations of labor to carve a perfect, self-sufficient sanctuary out of the living rock, only to one day walk away, sealing the doors behind them for the final time? The silence that now fills these chambers is a puzzle in itself, and archaeologists have pieced together several compelling theories to explain this great departure, each one a window into the complex forces that shape human history. For many of these cities, their entire reason for existence was defense, so the most straightforward theory is that the threat simply went away. Imagine a community that had endured generations of raids, finally experiencing a lasting period of peace, perhaps due to a powerful new empire securing the borders or a shift in trade routes that made their region less of a target. When the immediate danger of invasion faded, the significant daily discomfort of living in a dark, confined space would have quickly lost its appeal. Why remain in the cramped, lamp-lit depths when you could safely build a sun-filled home on the surface with windows and fresh air? In this scenario, abandonment wasn't a tragedy, it was a sign of success. It was a return to normalcy, a collective decision that the hardship of underground life was no longer a necessary price for safety. The city wasn't defeated, it was retired, its purpose fulfilled. However, the Earth itself may have become an adversary. Climate change is not a modern phenomenon. Ancient civilizations faced dramatic shifts in their environment that could render a once perfect sanctuary uninhabitable. A period of significantly increased rainfall could have been catastrophic. What was once a cleverly managed trickle of water seeping through the rock could become a torrent, flooding the lower levels and destabilizing the soft stone walls and ceilings, turning safe chambers into deadly, collapsing traps. Conversely, a prolonged and severe drought could have devastated the agricultural communities on the surface that supplied the underground cities, and worse, it could have dried up the very aquifers that provided their secure water source. A city can withstand a siege, but it cannot withstand its own water supply disappearing. When the environment that made the city viable changed fundamentally, the people had no choice but to leave in search of more hospitable land. Beyond physical threats, the cultural landscape above ground was also shifting. The spread of new religions or political systems could have made the old ways of life obsolete. A subterranean city carved by early Christians hiding from persecution would have lost its primary function if a new ruling power adopted Christianity, making it safe to worship in grand, above-ground basilicas. Similarly, if a new economic system emerged, one based on open trade and travel rather than fortified isolation, a hidden city could become an economic backwater. The younger generation, hearing stories of opportunities in bustling surface cities or newly established trade hubs, might have chosen to leave, seeking a more connected and prosperous life. The knowledge of how to maintain the rolling stone doors and ventilation shafts could have faded within a single generation, turning a marvel of engineering into a forgotten relic. The abandonment in these cases was a slow, generational fade, not a sudden evacuation. This is why archaeologists are so cautious about applying a single explanation to every site. The departure from a place like Derinkuyu likely involved a combination of these factors: a waning threat, a few bad seasons of flooding, and a new generation less invested in the old ways of hiding. Each city has its own unique story of decline, a specific cocktail of environmental, political, and social pressures that finally tipped the balance. Unraveling that story requires sifting through layers of evidence, from soil samples that reveal ancient climate data to the artifacts left behind in the final days. Were precious items taken, suggesting a planned and orderly departure, or were everyday tools and pottery left in place, hinting at a more sudden and forced exodus? The answers are as varied as the cities themselves. This complexity reminds us that history is rarely a simple story of cause and effect, but a rich tapestry of interwoven events, and that even the most permanent-looking structures are ultimately temporary chapters in the long, evolving story of human civilization. As we conclude our journey beneath the dust of time, we're left with a profound appreciation for the subterranean cities that no one was meant to find. These hidden worlds are far more than just historical curiosities or architectural oddities. They are powerful monuments to the human spirit in its most resilient and creative form. From the breathtaking multi-level marvels of Derinkuyu to the sprawling labyrinth beneath Orvieto and the ingenious cliffside refuges of China, each site tells a unique story of a community faced with extraordinary challenges. Their response was not to flee or surrender, but to dig in, to literally carve a new reality from the stone beneath their feet, demonstrating a level of ingenuity and foresight that continues to astonish engineers and historians today. We've ventured together through their intricately planned passageways, marveled at the sophisticated ventilation shafts that provided the breath of life, and stood in the silent chapels where faith was preserved against all odds. We've tried to imagine the daily rhythms of life in perpetual twilight, the communal kitchens humming with quiet activity, and the heavy silence that would have fallen as a rolling stone door sealed everyone in from the dangers above. These cities reveal that our ancestors were not so different from us. They possessed the same core desires for safety, for community, for meaning, and for a future for their children. They simply expressed those desires in one of the most dramatic and enduring ways imaginable. These places are testaments to a universal human truth. When confronted with seemingly insurmountable obstacles, we have an incredible capacity to adapt, to innovate, and to find strength in unity. The lessons they offer are not locked in the past. They resonate powerfully with our modern lives, encouraging us to face our own challenges, whether personal, communal, or global, with the same blend of creativity, cooperation, and unwavering perseverance. They remind us that sometimes security and meaning are not found by building higher walls on the surface, but by looking inward and downward, by leveraging the resources and wisdom we already possess in unexpected ways. Thank you for joining this exploration into the depths of history's greatest mysteries. If these stories of hidden worlds and human resilience have captivated your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the past. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Which subterranean city fascinated you the most, and what would you want to explore next? Remember, the past is never truly dead and buried. It is always waiting just beneath the surface, offering timeless lessons and endless wonders for those with the courage to